Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com program, brought to you by Techstrong and Metallic. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting program for you ahead. First, I do have a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. Today's session is being recorded. If you miss any of our discussion, or you'd like to rewatch or maybe share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session. If you have any questions, we want you to send those in to us using the Q&A tab. You'll find that on the right side of your screen. That's also where you will find the chat tab, and that's where we want you to get to know your fellow audience members. Maybe let us know from where you are joining us. We do have one poll, which I'm just going to go ahead and launch right now, but I'll read that out. How are you protecting Kubernetes data today? Self-scripted solution, third-party products, or hopes and prayers? So we do want you to respond to that. If you check out our handouts tab, you'll find a couple of resources available to aid with today's program. And of course, before we close, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So be sure to stick around. So on to the topic of today's program. It is modern data protection with Metallic Data Management as a Service, hybrid, Kubernetes, and beyond. And I'm joined by David Ngo, CTO of Metallic, a Commvault venture. So David, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to let you go ahead and take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you again to everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate you being on with us and really excited to talk about the topic at hand here. And by the way, I really hope that people are not depending on hopes and prayers. So it'll be interesting to see the result of that poll for sure. What are we talking about when we talk about data management as a service, especially when it comes to something like Kubernetes or modern cloud deployments, right? Because the whole idea of going to the cloud or using something like Kubernetes is to be resilient, right? To things that we kind of were concerned with when deployments and applications were on premises. Things like data center issues, power cooling, hardware failure, those things, you don't have to think about those anymore in the modern era, right? As infrastructure is modernized and cloud technologies are adopted, both from a lift and shift perspective, as well as kind of an application refactoring standpoint, right? When leveraging containers, why be concerned with this at all? And really the issue is that moving to these new types of infrastructures or newer deployment methodologies really presents new attack and threat vectors, right? And unfortunately, we're really talking about attack vectors as well. Of course, there are issues like human error, right? Those things are always present: accidental deletion, bad deployments, things of that nature. And we're talking about things like the siloing of data, having data on premises and the cloud, and the challenges around that. But really, what we're talking about here also is the rise of cybercrime. It's top of mind for everyone, right? And you have not only things like ransomware, right, which is what has been really widely publicized, I think, and people are very concerned about it overall. But the thing that people talk about less, which is actually even a greater problem, is the issue of a malicious insider, or the prospect of broad administrative account breaches using things like supply chain attacks. Right, so there were a few very public ones in the past couple of years, and it's a constant issue and a constant problem, right? And so modern data protection has to address these new attack vectors, right? We're not so worried about more traditional issues, though those are still present on premises, of course. But the modern threats are something that really we have to prioritize in terms of solving and addressing. And that's where, when you talk about a modern data protection or data management solution and addressing these problems, why think about something like data management as a service, right? And a lot of this comes down to a lot of the same reasons why companies look at cloud in general, right? Why look at SaaS solutions? Why look at containerized deployments, or why leverage the cloud? Simpler management. Number one, right? Less deployment and management overhead, right? ease of use, things like that, of course, are interesting in scale. But what you get from a data management as a service solution like Metallic are things like air gap security, which is one of the biggest issues today to protect against things like administrative breach and to protect against really the threats that we can't imagine today. The whole idea of having your data protection solution separate from production is so important. It's something that a lot of people tend to forget as they move to new platforms. You really want that separation so that a threat or attack on your production systems can't then influence or affect your data protection solution, number one, right? And I'm not just talking about ransomware or malware or even malicious insiders, right? It goes beyond that. And of course, for things like data management solutions as a service, all of the things that you like as well, scale, agility, ease of deployment, ease of use, ease of purchasing are all there, of course. And then the breadth of coverage that Metallic in general provides gives you the ability to not only protect your new workloads, right? If you've refactored your applications or built new native applications in the cloud using containers or using other cloud native infrastructure, but also things like your lift and shift applications, as well as things that might remain on premises, not only now, but in the future, right? So what we found is that most companies are going to rely on a hybrid deployment model for quite some time, quite possibly forever. Very few companies today have gone 100% cloud. Very few companies are 100% on premises. It's generally a mix. And reducing the management overhead and the risk associated with that kind of model is really important, right? Metallic brings you those capabilities, and leveraging the technology from Commvault, which is our technology has been tried and true for performance, scale, and security. Delivered as a service really gets you all of those benefits. And this is something, as I mentioned, we can protect your full gamut of deployment models. And when we're talking about things like the full gamut of deployment models, we're not just talking about VMs and Kubernetes and kind of applications that are built on some sort of compute, but also SaaS application data as companies make progress and move along their cloud journey, leveraging different types of cloud and service delivered applications like Microsoft 365 and Salesforce, Dynamics 365, looking at different cloud deployments like Azure, as well as AWS and even OCI, right, from Oracle. Having the flexibility to leverage these different technologies, to adopt them when you want to adopt them, rather than being limited by a data protection requirement, is really important, right? You have enough challenges meeting your modernization initiatives or being able to execute on those strategies in of themselves. You don't need the anchor of having an old data protection product or methodology in place, right? You want something that will cover you not just now, but in the future. And we can do that with Metallic, both on premises as well as cloud-based applications and data sources. So as I mentioned, Metallic does have that breadth of services, right? We cover everything from SaaS applications, and I mentioned a few of them in the last slide, Office 365 and Dynamics 365 and Salesforce. These are things that companies even that have, that still operate large data centers around the world, most of these companies have adopted at least one of these solutions, right? And that what happens is it creates a silo of data outside of your data center that you have to manage. And how do you do that? You do that with a SaaS-based solution. We also have our hybrid cloud data protection family. We're going to focus today on VM and Kubernetes backup, that particular offering. But hand in hand with that comes databases and files and objects, right? Because compute is really not interesting in of itself, right? What you really want to do is protect your entire estate when you're talking about your applications. It's compute and data. And where's the data land for persistent data? It's going to be in a database, whether it's self-managed or a SaaS database, for instance, in Azure, or you're using file storage, whether it's a regular file system like NTFS file system or NAS data or Linux or Unix file systems, as well as modern storage locations for files and objects like Azure Blob Storage or S3. We can cover that full gamut of your application layer and your data layer with the same solution, right? At the same point, from the same perspective, we provide cloud storage. And back to the security model, when we talk about why use data management as a service, I talked about that air gap solution, that separation of security domains. And that's where the cloud storage provided by Metallic comes into play. That is something where the storage itself is managed by Metallic. Our customers have no direct access to that storage, and so it is hardened and separated and resilient to attack, both external as well as internal attack. And then building on the security theme, we have ThreatWise, which is one of our newest features that provides for cyber deception. That's a really cool feature that is available. I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but it's really disruptive in terms of the security landscape. And then, of course, we protect endpoints and we provide Active Directory protection for authentication as well. So when we talk about security, I talked about that air gap a bit, right? And what that prevents really is the jump of an attack, or the ability for an attacker to jump from our customers' environments to the Metallic environment. And so if there is a breach in one of our customers' environments, it's not only isolated to that single customer, but it is isolated away from the backup infrastructure itself as well, both storage as well as all of the compute that's necessary to access that data. So that air gap is really critical. But we, of course, harden the service against attack against the service itself, as well as a attack from or malicious intent, or attacks with malicious intent from our customers' perspectives, right? If an administrative account was breached, we have controls built into the service that prevent destructive actions, for instance, without multi-user authentication or approval. We have a full zero trust based security system that consists of multiple layers built into our service. And the thing I think that, even though it might not be applicable to everyone, is that one of the most interesting things is that we are FedRAMP High compliant. We're the only data management as a service, a solution that is FedRAMP High. That consists of 421 controls. And the vast majority of those controls are implemented as well in our commercial offerings. So even if you don't have data that requires a FedRAMP High solution, or even a FedRAMP Medium solution, or moderate, I should say, then you still benefit from all the security controls that we've put into place with Metallic. All of our controls are available and have been audited in our ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2 reports. And we have data residency around the world to satisfy things like GDPR and like the Australian residency rules and residency rules in Canada. So we have presence as a global service around the world in data centers that allow us to satisfy those regional requirements. So in terms of storage, I just talked about data residency, right? How does storage work with Metallic? It's delivered in a couple ways, right? One is our SaaS applications and endpoints. As you would expect from an all-in-one kind of solution, we include storage with those solutions, right? Unlimited storage, unlimited retention. We'll just set that aside for now because we're not super focused on it. But where Metallic is really differentiated is that we give you flexibility in storage locations when we talk about our hybrid cloud workloads, right? Hybrid cloud being VM Kubernetes, which we're talking about today, databases, and file and object storage. So what does that mean in terms of flexibility? The first is we allow you to choose whether you purchase storage from us, the Metallic Recovery Reserve, or you bring your own storage in the cloud, right? So you could use your own subscriptions for storage targets, like an Azure Blob storage target or an S3 storage target. That's perfectly fine, right? But the other key that we give you is that for on-premises applications and data, we give you the ability to have a full copy on premises because data has gravity. You don't want to force people to move data away from production, especially for that first backup copy where you want really fast speeds, right? The restore capability is really why you use a data protection as a service solution anyway, right? It's not speed of backup, it's speed of restore. And so we focus on that by allowing our customers to have a full copy. It's not a cache. You have full control over retention. It's deduped, compressed, and encrypted at rest and on the wire. And so we allow you to have that local copy as well as a cloud copy for that air gap security, as well as long-term retention, ransomware resilience, and storage and cost-effective storage, right? And this sounds really complicated, right, to set up. But one of the things that we have with Metallic is guidance built into the service that takes advantage of all the best practices that we've talked about and worked out with our customers in the field over the years. We've built that right into the system, so it has smart defaults and suggestions. It guides you away from making decisions that inadvertently would incur a lot of costs, like for egress, for instance. Those are very important things that we've built right to the product. So we give you the most important patterns with the flexibility of changing if you know what you're doing and you want to do things a certain way. So let's talk about VM and Kubernetes Backup today in particular, right? This is something we're quite proud of. We have a wide gamut of hypervisor as well as Kubernetes technology. And of course, with everyone here, right, it's terrible when someone refers to applications Kubernetes as VMs or virtual machines. It's not that at all, of course, right? But the idea that we support Kubernetes in a data protection as a service offering is quite important, right? Kubernetes, of course, can be deployed on premises, it can be deployed in the cloud. You can have it self-managed. You can have it running as a service with like the Azure Kubernetes service or EKS in AWS. And it gives you a ton of flexibility in how you deploy, what infrastructure you want to use, whether you want to have it on-prem first and then move to the cloud. You might want to move something from the cloud back to on-premises, right? And these are all patterns that we support with Kubernetes. Not only do we support things like persistent data or persistent storage, we support cluster level configuration as well. So in case you lose your whole cluster, you want to bring things back, we can bring back all the data you need, all the configuration data that you need to be able to do that. We support backing up not only individual applications, but also from an entire cluster basis. So we'll protect from various perspectives, groups of apps, so you don't have to tell us every time a new app is deployed, right? We capture all the configuration data, all of the things you need to bring that app back. We can grow cross Kubernetes version, right? So there's a ton of capability built into our Kubernetes functionality that we're very proud of, and that really are at the leading edge of Kubernetes support in general. We support all sorts of Kubernetes distributions, right? Any CNCF certified distribution, vanilla Kubernetes, as well as things like OpenShift and AKS and EKS, that's all built in. If you're using something like AKS, for instance, there's nothing to deploy at all, right? It's a service in the cloud. Simply configure, it's just 4 steps, and you're protecting AKS. It's really, really easy. And it's super scalable, just as you would expect by using Kubernetes in the first place, right? The service to protect it is also scalable with you. It's not just scalable to handle lots of customers. That's good for us, but you don't care about that. What you really care about is how we perform and scale to support your deployments. And that's, as an enterprise-based company, what we're really focused on is performance for each customer, right? And of course, for any applications that have not been refactored to take advantage of containers, we support those as well. So wherever you are in your containerization journey, we can support you with a wide variety of hypervisor support, right? Native VMware support, Hyper-V, Azure VMs, OCI VMs, AWS VMs, we support them all. So you can rest assured that, even if you're just starting on your journey, but you need to be prepared for the future and what's coming, that we can support you. Where if you've really made a large shift into the containerized deployment world, then we can support that as well, while still protecting whatever might be left and may never be containerized for whatever reason. So the portfolio that we have, of course, I mentioned, uniquely connects the edge, which is really what I would say is the on-premises data center anymore, to the cloud, right? We provide for data mobility, and that's one of the most important things, especially when we're talking about modernization. One thing that's really interesting is that, with previous kind of technology shifts, they've always been kind of waves, right? Like the last virtualization wave. People started adopting VMs. Everything went to a VM, and no one really goes back from that. No one takes a VM and says, hey, you know what? I'd really like to make this a physical system again. And so there's a disruption period and then a stable period. The introduction of something like cloud means that data centers and data center deployments and application deployments are always dynamic. They're dynamic from now on, right? Because everyone is always asking, hey, is there a better way to deploy our application? How do we handle scale better? Should it run in the cloud or should it run on premises? Do I need to move it from on-prem to the cloud? Do I need to move it from the cloud back on-prem? And these questions are asked regularly. So you introduce a dynamic nature to the data center, which never existed before. And that's where something like Metallic can really help you, right? Because it's something that can support you in all phases of that journey. We can support things on-prem if you need storage, for instance, with our Hyperscale X solution, which is scale-out storage, right? Highly performant, highly dense, and highly cost-effective, all the way to the cloud, to SaaS apps and beyond. And this is where I mentioned we support those four main patterns, right? When you have a cloud deployed solution, you can back up directly to cloud storage. You don't have to use like a VM landing zone or write to block storage. That's kind of an old way, right? It's almost like a lift and shift kind of model. We let you back up directly to blob storage. If you have on-premises, we allow you to back up to existing on-premises storage that you may already have. Or if you need scale-out storage, we can put a Hyperscale X appliance there on premises to handle that workload. And of course, there's the magic pattern, right? Which is having a backup on premises for fast recovery, and then backing up to and then making a deduped, highly network efficient copy of that to the cloud for long-term retention and ransomware resilience, right? And these patterns are supported by everything you see here: the VM and Kubernetes backup, the database backup offering, as well as file and object backup, right? And again, you can protect everything associated with your application, the compute as well as the data, with Metallic. So let's take a look at Metallic itself, right? Let me share my screen here, and let's take a look at the interface itself. So this is what we call the hub. This is the initial landing page once you log into Metallic with your brand new account or as a returning user. And you can see that all of the functionality is exposed in a really easy to understand list of tiles, right? Here we're going to go to VM and Kubernetes, and that brings up a tab which gives you a dashboard of everything you need to see, right? It's all focused here. If you wanted to bring up file and object, for instance, also, that would come up as another tab. When you log out and log back in, these tabs will remain. So you can customize what you want to see at any given time. This dashboard up here changes depending on what workload you're working with. And down here, we expose the most common links and tasks between workloads in order to make things really, really easy, right? If you want to add users or access documentation, support is built right into the UI here. You can create a case, or you can even chat with our customer support right from the UI. Makes things really, really easy. This dashboard presents the most common data that most administrators are looking for. You can see things like how many data sources you've protected, what your storage utilization is, right? And what your current job status is, and things like plans. We'll talk about plans in a moment here. And we also make it very, very simple to add a new configuration. Here you can see all of the hypervisors as well as Kubernetes here that we support. We go to Kubernetes, and we can give you a choice, whether you have an on-premises deployment where we need a little bit of presence in order to access your Kubernetes cluster securely, or if you're using something like AKS where everything is in the cloud, so there's nothing to do at all from a deployment standpoint. Let's pick that to look at here, right? And you can see here, we really have 4 steps. That's it. It's very, very easy to configure. It's all guided. You pick the storage that you want. What the plan does is it lets you actually choose things like backup frequency. Let's go through this for a minute, right? So let's pick a region, right, which will match kind of where your AKS deployment is. And here's the plan, right? So plans define things like backup frequency, how long you want to retain the data. It's really a policy that you establish that can be shared between different types of backups. We have some suggestions here with some smart defaults. Some of the most common configurations, of course, you can define your own custom plan, right? Or if you've already used or defined a plan, you can simply use one that already exists. Very, very simple. You add the cluster, you add application groups, done. And you can start backing up and you never have to worry about it again. Now, if you want to restore your data, it's quite straightforward, right? How do you get to restoring or seeing what's protected? Because at the end of the day, that's what's really interesting, right? Here, what we show you is a really simple way to take a look at all your applications, your clusters, your application groups, and you can see what's been protected, when it was last backed up, how big it was, and what plan, right? It's very easy to get to. If we wanted to look at something like this, we wanted to do a restore, right? We give you all the options for doing restores, the different levels of options that are available, entirely up to you. We give you full control. And restore, we let you select what you want, and then it's very, very straightforward to actually perform the restore. So again, very easy to get to different levels of restore granularity and capability. Very easy to configure backups. Very easy to go between different types of data, right? So file and objects, of course, and then of course there are databases, right? So databases are really interesting. From Azure databases and AWS databases, SQL, SAP HANA, Oracle. You really have the full choice of different types of databases, including PaaS databases in the cloud. So very straightforward, very easy to use, and something that we're happy to say that most customers, we get great feedback on the UI in terms of how easy it is to use. That's really the focus. We've really been fortunate to get a lot of accolades from the industry. We're really redefining the gold standard of data management as a service, right? It's not just the performance, it's not just the scalability, it's not just the infrastructure and architecture, ease of use, but it's the breadth of offerings, the completeness of the solution. That really reduces the work that you have to do in order to adequately protect your data. You don't have to go to different point solutions. You don't have to compromise on features or functionality. You get best in class features for each workload, as well as the full breadth of solutions that you need to protect your applications as a whole. And we give you that architecture and that hybrid cloud flexibility, which allows you to be anywhere in your cloud journey, as I mentioned before, and rest assured that we will be there to support you, right? And the pace of development is something that's tremendous. We have a ton of technology to draw from, and we introduce new features and functionality on a regular basis. We're lucky to have been recognized with a number of awards, but really at the end of the day, what really makes me most interested or makes me happiest is the feedback we get from our customers, and things about how well they can sleep at night because they know that that they can rely on us to bring their data back when they need it to be recovered. We have a promotion running right now. It's a limited time offer, which is quite exciting, right? If you buy 3 of our packs, so you can look at our website, metallic.io, and look at the different purchasing options and how we license. If you buy 3 of our standard VM packs, you'll get 1 for free from now until March 31st of 2023. So, definitely go and take a look at this and take advantage of this awesome offer. It's running for a while now, but you don't want to miss out on this if you can. And try Metallic for yourself. I think there's no better way of really understanding what Metallic can do for you than actually doing a free trial. So go to metallic.io/trial. You can easily start a free trial there. You can check out additional information about our products and our features and our licensing and our pricing. Everything's on metallic.io. So thank you very much. And now we can shift to Q&A and answer any questions that might have been put there. So let's take a look. So, great question. So there's a question here around how can you deal with GDPR, right, and privacy regulations. So we are actually GDPR compliant. We have data centers in a number of countries in Europe, not only to deal with things like GDPR, but also things like what happened with Brexit, right? So that was a challenge for everyone. Data residency and compliance with local regulations is top of mind. So if we're present in an area, we're available for sale all over the world. We're also compliant with local regulations. So there is a GDPR statement that talks about things like privacy, as well as data residency in Europe, right? We have data centers in the Netherlands and in Ireland and in France and other countries in Europe. So very, very good question. Let's see here. Oh, do I need a specific Kubernetes distribution to use Metallic? No, any CNCF certified distribution will work. And it's actually on premises, in the cloud, self-managed, as a service, right? All of those options are supported by Metallic. Let's see here. So you said that Metallic is built around zero trust methodologies. What practices or features are in place? Great question. So a full list is available of all our controls in our SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001 reports. Those are available under NDA, of course, because they have a ton of detail about our security practices. But there are many, many controls in place. MFA authentication and strong RBAC controls and auditing and all sorts of testing that we do and reporting that we do. It's all in place, built into the service itself in the code. So if you have specific questions or specific requirements, please feel free to get in touch with us, engage with us, and we can get more detail about that to you. Okay, let's see here. Air-gapped backups. We talked about air-gapped backups. What does that mean? Obviously, air-gapped backups, these are not air-gapped in the traditional sense where there's no network connection. Of course, there's a network connection, right? It's a data management as a service offering. But just like, things like immutable mean different things to people, right? What do they mean in terms of the threat that we're talking about here? An air-gapped backup means that there is a separation of security domains between our customers' environments and the data protection environment. And so even if there's complete breach, every account is compromised from one of our customers, that they cannot go then and access or delete or destroy any infrastructure, compute, or data in the Metallic service itself. And that's very powerful, right? That's something that that puts up a strong barrier for known threats today, like ransomware, any other kind of malware, or those malicious insiders, but also kind of unknown threats. I can't even begin to imagine what the next security threat will be to our customers' environments, which is always scary. But we can be assured that having that air-gapped protection is very, very important, very, very resilient to attacks in general. And that's why one of the biggest reasons our customers are looking at data management as a service in general, they're looking to defend against those threats. And I think that's it, unless there are other questions. Cody, did you want to do the gift cards?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone that this session was recorded. Following this webinar, you'll receive an email with a link to access that recording on demand, or you can find it on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and just be sure to look in the on-demand section. And we do have 4 $25 Amazon gift cards to give out. Our first winner is Reg H. Our second winner is Maria M. Our third winner is Brian S. And our fourth and final winner is Harjod S. So to the 4 of you, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you do not see that email, please check your spam folder. All right, David, did we receive any more questions during that brief announcement?
Nope, doesn't look like it. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time today. It's been a fantastic opportunity to talk about data protection with you all.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for taking time to join us. We would like to really, really thank Metallic for sponsoring today's program. And to our audience, we really appreciate you joining us as well. We ask for just one extra moment of time to fill out a brief survey that will pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But otherwise, we hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong Learning program. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. And David, thank you once more.
Thank you.